Three. Hello, welcome back to Kennedy Sports Guys podcast. And today we have a very special guest. Joining the show today is legendary Los Angeles Clippers broadcaster Ralph Lawler. Mr. Lawler needs no introduction, as for the last 41 years, he has been the voice of the Los Angeles Clippers. Mr. Lawler has called over 3,000 games in his career, achieving it on December 16, 2016 against the New Orleans Pelicans. His contributions to the game accumulated with the Kirk Gowdy Award, an award given to outstanding basketball writers and broadcasters. He is known as the walking basketball encyclopedia. It is an honor to welcome to the show today, Mr. Ralph Lawler. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you, Kenny. I'm glad to be here. Put this Mr. Lawler thing aside, and just it's Ralph and Kenny, okay?
All right, no problem. So the first question I have for you is, your legendary career needs no introduction. How did your role with the Los Angeles Clippers start?
Well, I had broadcast San Diego American Basketball Association basketball in the late 70s and mid 70s. And then I was back in Philadelphia working and televising Philadelphia 76er games. The fellow who had hired me to work in the ABA wound up being the first general manager of the newly formed San Diego Clippers in 1978. And he kept calling me saying, you got to come on out here and do this. It'll be great. Get you back to San Diego. And so finally I relented and moved from Philadelphia back to San Diego, where I had worked for several years before that. And when I got the job, Kenny, I was 40 years old. And I said, this is the last job I ever want to have as long as I live. This is it. And because as you know, in this business, you can go through a bunch of jobs very, very quickly. And I had worked all over the darn place. And I knew then that that's the last job I ever wanted to have. And it wound up being that. I just never dreamed it would last 40 years, which is what it did.
That's very, very interesting. What makes you think that was going to be the last job that you had?
Well, I love basketball always. And I had tried some years earlier when the now Houston Rockets were in San Diego as the San Diego Rockets to get the broadcast job, and didn't make the final cut on that. And then in Philadelphia, I was doing 76er home games on television and just loving it, loving the sport, loving the pro game. And I was kind of a part of it, but I wasn't like, the voice or the face of the franchise. And a chance to do that in a town that my family and I love, San Diego, I thought this is just, it can't get any better than this. So I was very, very fortunate, very happy to get that job.
It's very interesting. So the next question I have is, did you believe that you was going to stay with the Clippers for over 40 years?
No, I figured people typically start talking about retirement at 65, and I was 40. So I might have thought, 20, 25 years of this would be pretty darn good, but never thought I would work until I was 80 years old. I was actually 81 when I called my last ball game, and my wife and I just counted our blessings that people still wanted to pay me to work at that age. Anybody that has any job that they love for 40 years is very, very fortunate. And I was certainly all of that.
That is true. It's like the old saying goes, do what you love. That's it.
Yeah. Right.
So the next question I have is, did you have like a certain mindset or ritual before every game that you announce in your career?
I don't know if it was a ritual or not, but it was a well-developed habit of what it would take. People, I think, probably think that broadcasters, whether it's on a network show or on a regional network, as we were in Southern California, just show up at the game and start announcing it. I would get up early, usually 6:30 or so in the morning, and work nonstop until maybe 3 in the afternoon when it was time to get shaved and showered and dressed up and make the lengthy drive to the arena. And in LA, every drive is a lengthy drive. And so, I mean, I worked 6, 7, 8 hours in preparation for every game that I did. And that was well over 3,000 games, not including all the preseason games. But it was, I just didn't have maybe the confidence to just sit down and start yakking without having done all that work and feeling very confident. A fellow named Rod Hundley, who's also a Hall of Fame broadcaster and was a very good NBA player, worked for the Utah Jazz for many years. And Rod would literally, he'd go out and play 18 holes of golf and show up at the arena an hour and a half before the game and almost say, "Who we playing tonight?" And then just sit down and be absolutely delightful for 3 hours, on the air. I couldn't do that. I always envied Rod either way he was able to do that, but it was different strokes for different folks. It's not the way that I could work.
We all work differently, actually, and
Yeah,
I guess we have our own way of doing things, and anything you do in this life. So yeah, his own way, you have your own way.
yeah.
So the next question I have is: you had many memorable quotes in your career, such as bingo, Lawler's Law, the lob, the jam, and wedgie. I have to ask, where did the origins of these catchphrases came from? Because personally, I think that they are very amazing.
Well, I had fun with them, and it turned out apparently that the listeners and viewers had fun following them. Bingo, which is the title of my book, Bingo 40 Years in the NBA, which is available now, happened because in 1979, the league brought in the 3-point shot from the old AVA, and the Clippers brought in a player from Cleveland named Bobby Bingo Smith, who just passed away a couple of days ago. Hard to say,
Oh no!
but Bobby was a good long range shooter, and whenever he would make a three, I'd say bingo, and it kind of caught on, and so pretty soon Bobby was no longer with the ball club. I just kept it going. When a 3-point basket was made, I called bingo, and so it worked from that standpoint. The other things that they just kind of popped out in my mouth, and I'd start hearing it kind of reflected back to me from fans in the arenas, and something worked. I had called "Fasten Your Seatbelts" when it was a close game near the end of the game, and a local columnist at the LA Times wrote once, "Every time I get in my car and fasten my seatbelt, I think of Ralph Lawler." So I thought, well, that's good. So that stuck as a result. But I tell young broadcasters who often ask me, how do you develop, a signature call or that kind of a thing? And I say, don't try. Just it'll happen or it won't happen. But when it happens, you'll know it, and the people that follow you will note it and then go with it. But you can't try to sit at home and try to conjure up some phrase that's going to work. It just kind of happens organically.
That is true, and I think, sir, you have one of the best catchphrases of all time. Actually, I think your catchphrase actually influenced other broadcasters such as Mike Breen with his bang catchphrase, and
Yeah.
I think you're the one that actually started this whole trend of that.
Well, I don't know if that's true or not, but it would be it'd be an honor. And occasionally, I will hear watch NBA League Pass all the time. I still follow the league faithfully and pretty much nightly. I'll hear a broadcaster refer to Lawler's Law, first team to 100 wins, and it's kind of neat to hear because it's been 4 or 5 years since I worked.
Yeah, it's been since 2016, I believe, right?
2019 was the year I
2019. 2019. And so the next question I have is, what is your favorite Los Angeles Clippers moment from your career?
there's a lot of them. I mean, I guess one that, and it wouldn't stand out to most people because the team never won a championship, so we don't have a championship game to talk about. There was a year that the Clippers opened the playoffs against the San Antonio Spurs. The Spurs were the defending NBA champions with Tim Duncan and that whole great crew that they had, all of whom are now in the Hall of Fame.
Yep.
And the Clippers took them to a 7-game series, and the game 7 was at home in Los Angeles, so what was then called Staples Center, and it was a tie game. And as time was running out, Chris Paul, who was the point guard for the team, made a drive and lobbed in a right-handed layup over the outstretched arm of Tim Duncan to win the game and win the series. We had beaten the champions, and that was maybe the biggest single game that the team has ever won. That stands out, but there are so many, Kenny. I just had a wonderful long career, and for many years the Clippers were a very, very bad team. For the past dozen years or so, they've been one of the top 3 or 4 teams in the entire league, and it was nice to go out on that kind of a note.
Right off to the sunset, right? So the next question I have is, you are the recipient of the 2019 Kurt Gowdy Award. What was it like receiving the call?
Well, that was a thrill because it's induction into the Basketball Hall of Fame, the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame in Springfield, Massachusetts, where the game was formed by Dr. Naismith back in the late 1800s. And just being there, I had visited the Hall of Fame many years ago, never thinking I'd be back as an honoree, so to speak. So my whole family was there, our 3 kids, and their spouses, and our best friends, representatives from the basketball team and from Fox Sports, which was the regional network that carried our game for so many years. So, and you're surrounded by the greatest players, coaches, and owners that the league has ever known at a big banquet on a Friday night. It's awe-inspiring, it's humbling, it's rewarding, it's the greatest honor that a basketball broadcaster can receive. It was a thrilling night. There's no question about it.
It has to be. It's like the top of the top, man. You made it into the Basketball Hall of Fame, man. All your hard work paid off. All right, so let's talk about today's basketball, especially the Los Angeles Clippers. As of this recording, the Clippers are 2-1 after 3 games into the season, blowing out the San Antonio Spurs last Sunday. What do you think about the Clippers this season so far?
Well, they won last night by 40 points over the Spurs, which is pretty remarkable to beat anybody by 40 points. I don't think Greg Popovich coached team. I wonder if he's ever lost a game by 40 points. So I'd say they're off to a terrific start. They lost one game that they certainly could easily have won in Salt Lake City against the Utah Jazz. That had them at 3-0, but instead it's 2-1. You take what you got, and I think they have a chance to be in the mix of the 5 or 6 teams that have a legitimate chance to win a championship. And it would be a thrill for me, even now, removed by several years from the team, to see them win a championship. It would really be something. I think they got a shot at it. They have a championship coach in Tyronn Lue. They've got 3 future Hall of Fame players in their starting lineup, and Kawhi Leonard and Paul George and Russell Westbrook. There's still talk about them maybe adding James Harden from Philadelphia in a trade. They're right there knocking at the door right now, and but it's a very competitive league. It's hard to win on a nightly basis. It's hard to win division title. It's hard to win every one of the series you have to win to get to the championship finals. But they've got a shot, and that's really all you can ask for. They have a great owner in Steve Ballmer, who is the wealthiest owner in all of professional sports. So the checkbook is not a problem with this club, as it was years before when Donald Sterling owned the team, where every expenditure was put under the microscope and questioned. So they've really got everything you need to win a championship. You just need a good bounce of the ball here or there, a little bit of luck, and you can be the champion. And that'd be something. They're moving into a brand new arena next year. They'd love to open that up by raising a championship banner, that's for sure.
In the event if they get James Harden from the Philadelphia 76ers, do you think that it will hurt the team, or it will make the team up to the next level?
I'm not sure how to answer that, Kenny. I really Lawrence Frank is the president of basketball operations. He's got a really good staff, including the great legendary Jerry West in the front office with him. If they want James Harden, I hope they get him. If they don't, I figure they know better. They know way better than I do whether or not he would fit in with this group. I'm not in the locker room. I'm not at all the practices as I used to be. So from this distance, I wouldn't pretend or presume to give them any advice or counsel, because they know whether or not Harden would fit, whether his personality would work with the group that they have. It'd be fascinating to see, because then you have 4 future Hall of Famers in your starting lineup. That sounds pretty good.
Well, that would be very interesting to watch, actually. But
Yeah.
there's like the dynamic of the team, might suffer a little bit. But then again, I'm not in the front office, but we shall see what happens. So, who is one player that you believe that needs to take a leap this season for the Clippers?
That need to what, Kenny?
To take a leap this season.
I don't think that's something that's a concern. I just think that the group needs to play to their level of skill. You've got one of the 5 or 6 best players in the league in Kawhi Leonard. You've got a great two-way player in Paul George. You've got the guy who's been a triple-double machine his entire career,
Russell Westbrook. Yeah, Westbrook.
Zubats is a very capable big center who can protect the rim, can score from the low post, rebounds well at both ends of the court, and they have maybe the best depth of any team in the league. They go 9-10 men deep without much of a fall off when you have to start making substitutions, or when you have the inevitable injuries that hold some players out of games. I think the only leap they have to make is have a leap to be relatively healthy. To have George and Leonard play 70, 75 games, that would give them a real chance to win the Western Conference Championship, which is a great step towards winning the whole thing. I just think good health is all they really need. I think they've got everything else that you need.
So the next question I have is, who do you think wins the NBA Finals this season?
I think I'm going to say the Milwaukee Bucks. Bring in Damian Lillard from Portland to go with their already great cast led by the Greek Freak. I think the Bucks have the cast, the experience. They have championship experience. and having Lillard, one of the most dynamic scorers in the league, averaged 30 some points a game last year. Adding him without giving up any key members of their rotation, I would say the Bucks have a great chance to win it all. And if I were a betting man, I'd probably put $1 or two on the Bucks.
I think for me, I think the Denver Nuggets have a chance at a repeat also. But I could definitely see, the Denver Nuggets are really good. They're a really good basketball team, especially with Nikola Jokic.
And they are the defending champs.
But I could definitely see a Bucks Nuggets final. I think it will be exciting.
That'd be fun to watch. Yeah, yes, indeed.
Yeah. So tell me about your recent new book called Bingo.
Well, as I went on in my career, people would often we just sit there and you tell stories back and forth as you're out to dinner with your friends and your compatriots. We travel the road. They'd say, "You ought to write a book." And so when I retired, the 2019-20 season opened without us, and I was like, okay, now we talked about retiring for years. We've finally done it. What do we do now? And I hearkened back to this thought about maybe I've got the makings of a book. My real intention was to write a book about the history of the league, because I have, because of my age, a very unique look at the league. My dad and I became fans of the National Basketball Association. The year was formed in 1946, which is like ancient history right now. I was 8 years old.
It's not so ancient.
But anyway, we followed the league from the very beginning. I mean, I can talk about George Mikan, who was the game's first great big man and superstar, and was known as Mr. Basketball, because I saw him play in college at DePaul University against our hometown Bradley University team in Peoria, Illinois, and then saw him play for 10 years in the National Basketball Association, and later met George Mikan and talked the history of the game and his contribution to it. And then it goes through the marvelous years of Bill Russell and the Boston Celtics and their domination of the 1960s. I've seen them all play. And so I can talk about them firsthand rather than just having read something in a book or seen some old grainy black and white, video clips of these guys. And I thought, so that's a look at the history of the league that I have not seen presented anywhere by somebody who has seen it all. And so that became kind of the birth of my thoughts about writing a book. And it wound up, the publisher, Santa Monica Press, said, I'd like to get some more about you into the book. So it became part memoir and part NBA history. And the memoir part is not just me saying, well, look how great I am. It's like, what does it take to number one, find a career that you truly love, and where going to work is never a job, it is a pleasure, and finding that and sustaining it for as many years. I was in the broadcast business for 60 years, and it's not an easy thing to do. And I am so lucky that I found it, and some good guidance from my mother and father, and working in Peoria, which for some reason or other became just a birthplace of a lot of very, very good, successful broadcasters, starting with Chick Hearn, who's a legendary LA Lakers broadcaster. He used to broadcast my high school basketball games in Peoria, and he started the parade of sportscasters to the West Coast, and I was able to follow along with many others out of Peoria. But it is just, I've got friends and family members today who work Monday through Friday and just can't wait for Saturday and Sunday to come, or work their 50 weeks to get their 2 weeks vacation. And I go, man, and they get up in the morning and think, oh God, I got to go to work again today. And that's probably the bulk of our population experiencing
That is
that.
true.
And so the book kind of, I think, gives a roadmap on how to find, number one, find the career, and then how to get into it and get that first job and develop it where it becomes your life. I mean, the LA Clippers were my life. I say I retired at 80. 40 of my 80 years, literally half of my life, had been spent with that basketball team. And that is a blessing I will never take for granted and will always be so grateful for.
So where can people find you and the book Bingo?
Well, it's Amazon.com or where you typically buy your books. It's available, and I'd love to have people pick it up and take a look at it and see how it fits into their lives and their search for the kind of joy that I was lucky enough to have. I pinch myself even today, and it's really great. And the book will show that, and the relationships that developed over the years. I mean, I have 2 full paragraphs on Bill Walton, one of the great players in game history, and now very well known, television color guy, college games and pro games. Bill was such a joy to be with, and we had some marvelous adventures, including an 18-day, 17-night whitewater raft trip down the Colorado River through the Grand Canyon. And I've got maybe 100 photographs, never before seen by anybody, and a lot of stories that nobody has ever heard. So it's a fun, very, very easy read. It's nothing academic about it. It's just good fun.
Well, that's all the questions I have today. I really want to thank you for the time, and this experience has been one of the highlights of my podcast, and I just want to thank you for the time.
Well, thank you, Kenny. I appreciate it. Nice job. I wish you well in your career.
Thank you so much. I really do appreciate that.
You bet.
This is the end of this interview. Special thanks to Mr. Ralph Lawler for the interview. For future and past episodes, check me out on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify. Also, follow me on Twitter at Kenny_sports and TikTok at Kenny Sports Podcast. Also, check out my website, kenthesportsguy.com, Ken with 2 N's. Until the next episode, see ya, and I hope you stay safe and healthy.